Americans of the United States, Americans of the United States, listen, this is the citizens. Since the attack of 9/11, the government has enforced laws to, quote, protect the people from terrorist attacks. The following is the laws. The FISA Amendments Act of 2008 allows the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to authorize warrantless surveillance of Americans' international electronic communications. USA Patriot Act of 2001 authorized sneak and peek searches. Sneak and peek search warrants allow the government to search your home or business without telling you about it until months later. Although national security concerns were the stated justification for this authority, these warrants are issued overwhelmingly in drug cases, with less than 1% used for terrorism cases. USA Patriot Act of 2001 Part 2, of 2001 expanded the authority of the FBI to issue national security letters (NSL) requesting information from and about Americans. NSLs can compel banks, internet service providers, and other third parties to secretly reveal your personal information. No judicial approval is required, and the FBI needs to only certify that the requested information is relevant to a terrorism investigation, a much lower standard than under previous law. The number of NSLs has doubled in the last 2 years, and the Justice Department's Inspector General has found widespread abuse of this law enforcement tool. USA Patriot Act Humanitarian Law Project v. Holder, 2010. The USA Patriot Act expanded 18 U.S.C. 2339, which criminalizes giving material support to terrorists, to include expert advice or assistance as a prohibited form of support. Under previous Supreme Court precedent, pure speech could be criminalized only if it had the intent and likely effect of furthering a group's illegal aims. In 2010 S. Holder v. Humanitarian Law Project, however, the Supreme Court held that the First Amendment permitted criminalization, under the Material Support Law, of efforts to provide advice to members of a terrorist group on how to use international law and other nonviolent conflict resolution mechanisms. Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004 authorized the Department of Homeland Security to develop a strategic plan for airport security measures. The new plan called for the TSA to improve and deploy equipment that detects weapons and other objects in airports. Beginning in March 2010, TSA began employing some 450 full-body scanners, which display an image of the passenger's body underneath his or her clothing. Despite continued outrage from passengers, the D.C. Circuit of Appeals ruled in July 2011 that the use of scanners did not violate the Fourth Amendment, which guards against unreasonable searches and seizures. U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Department of Homeland Security policy changes allowed suspicionless searches of documents and electronic devices carried by U.S. citizens returning from overseas travel. Before this change, a government directive allowed customs officials to read documents or papers belonging to Americans returning from overseas travel only if there was a reasonable suspicion that a U.S. law had been violated. The new policy, introduced by the Bush administration and followed by the Obama administration, allows government officials to search any documents or papers, including the entire contents of laptops and other electronic devices, without any suspicion of wrongdoing. Attorney General Guidelines for Domestic FBI Operations, 2008. Domestic FBI operations have expanded dramatically since 9/11. Intrusive investigations are now permitted based on less evidence of wrongdoing than in the past. The 2008 Attorney General Guidelines for Domestic FBI Operations, in particular, allow the FBI to conduct assessments using techniques such as informants, pretext interviews in which an agent surreptitiously questions an individual, and 24-hour physical surveillance even in the absence of any factual predicate for the investigation. FBI Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide, 2008. Allowed ethnic profiling. The FBI's 2008 Domestic Investigations Guide institutionalized suspicion of Muslim Americans by allowing the FBI to map locations of concentrated ethnic communities and ethnic-oriented businesses and other facilities as permissible means of gathering information about potential terrorism. The FBI has reportedly conducted such mapping in cities with concentrated Muslim populations in California, Michigan, and Minnesota. The people it will take every person in the US to change the direction that things are going. Back in the day the thinking was for the people by the people, now it is for the government by the government. If we just ignore the way things are going we will have no rights. I'm not saying go in the streets and protest, all I'm saying is pay attention to the laws and write and call the lawmakers. Every person deserves to live happy and to have the freedoms our families have been fighting for hundreds of years. America, no one deserves to go without a job. No one needs to feel like every day is the end. We need to do something before it is over. Thank you.